All right, you are live.
All right. Well, welcome to the 25th of May meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. Quorum being present, the meeting shall come to order. The commission operates pursuant to the land use article of the annotated code of the state of Maryland. Local authority for the commission is derived from municipal code of the city of Annapolis, chapter 2156. The purpose of the HPC is to preserve sites, structures, and of historical, cultural, archaeological, architectural of significance. Requirements for serving on the commission are detailed in chapter 21, section 806. The HPC operates pursuant to the State of Maryland Open Meetings Act, and no pending application shall be discussed among commissioners outside the public hearing. And I just was reflecting on this. I always make that statement at the beginning, but I thought I really wanted to kind of acknowledge for all of you and the public who might be listening, our commissions really are a vital component of the way our community functions. And we are executing the rules and laws that have been passed by the community. And I just wanted to say I appreciate all of your time and the discussion that we have and the civility that we conduct ourselves with. And I just wanted to note that after I go through this formal thing every time, I always feel like, well, that was kind of dumb. Oh, not dumb. That was, but the concept is we are, as volunteers, we are executing the community's wishes. And I just wanted to thank you all for that. So with that, we'll go to the agenda, which we just have 2 items tonight. We can talk at the end a little bit if there are any announcements, but the first, roll call. I'm Tim Leahy. I serve as chair. Will Scott.
Present.
Bill Williams.
Here.
Kim Finch.
Present.
Kevin Smith.
Here.
And I did get notice that our other 2 commissioners were not going to be with us tonight. All right. As I said, we have 2 pre-applications tonight. The first is 93 Main Street. So Madeline, if you would please promote the applicants, presenters. There we go. Hi, Jay.
Good evening. Who is that JJ Tower guy? He can get introduced.
I was remiss. Thank you, Jay. Well, staff is John Tower and Kimberly Consoli is our recorder. So thanks for, I got off on a tangent there and I think I missed my note. See what happens when I don't do my normal procedure.
Well, and then of course we have Jacqueline Rouse.
Oh, Jackie is here as well. Yeah.
And my associate Dave Ferrara is with us as well.
Hi, Dave.
I believe you also have Joey and Jared.
I don't know. They might be here.
Yeah, no, I was just making sure that they were with you. Jared and Joey, if you can hear me, I'm sending a prompt to your screen so that you can come on as a panelist, and that will allow you to turn on your audio and video. So if you see that prompt, you can go ahead and hit yes.
Jay, are those your clients?
Client and team, client team.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Jared is an owner and Joey is the construction manager, I think, for them. So they're at least on screen now.
Okay. Got everybody?
I think so.
Great.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, well, I'll do my normal pre-application introduction. you don't mind. Yeah, this is a pre-application before the commission, and it's a courtesy extended to applicants who are planning on making a full application, and will provide feedback on the aspects of the design, but nothing should be taken as an approval or disapproval of any of the aspects. So I just need to acknowledge that. Okay. Thank you.
That's great.
Okay. So tell us what you want us to know, and then give us your presentation. We'll have a conversation among ourselves, and then I'll summarize.
All right, thank you. I'm going to share our screen, my screen. '93 Main Street. It's Tim was in maybe this Tim office, Tim up here back in
That was my office.
back in 2000. This is Mills Liquors. The building was built by Hillard Donner, wonderful gentleman who owned Mills Liquors in 1970, or was occupied in 1970. A pretty nice local architect, James Birch, designed it. I mean, people like him or don't, but we have new owners. And within the past year, Hillard passed away. His two daughters, I think, inherited the business, Mills. He also inherited this building, among other things. And I think, and we have a group out of DC that also has other projects in Annapolis that have purchased it. And what they have purchased does not include this little piece. If you can see my hand,
Mhm.
does not include this piece. This is still part of Mills. It's like, I guess it's been condoed off. They do not own this piece. So the project here is, it's been offices for, Tim remembers, since forever our time. And they're gonna change it. Office market's been very soft, and they want to change it to apartments. And regular long-term apartments is the plan. It meets the zoning of the C2 district as allowed use. The idea is, and I'll walk through the plans, but it's 4 units per floor. And the first floor will remain retail office, which it is now. Wells Fargo has this ATM unit, and they have a lease on the first floor. I'm not sure how much longer it is. Eventually, we'd like to remove this, but right now it's part of their lease package. So our main entrance is here. The scope of the project is to develop apartments, and apartments need code approved egress windows. These windows are not. These are casements, double casements, open to the right and to the left. Our proposal is to replace these windows with, these are aluminum clad windows, probably original from 1970. Looks like Pella windows. To replace them with the same look, but as single casements to meet the egress requirements. And that would be all the windows. We would maintain the upper light, but replace all the windows with new windows, not only for egress components, but they're also failing now. As I go through, I will talk about each floor, and if you have questions, stop me. Let's see, when is this here? Let's see.
I'll just jump in real quick, Jay. I think an important aspect of what you were just showing was the buildings to the left and the right, which one to the right, of course, is very significant to the left. I'm not sure the dates of those buildings, but this fits in with the context there. And so we'll always be looking at how whatever we're changing has an impact on those buildings.
Yeah. Another factor that does affect what, at least the front facade, is FEMA, as to the city of FEMA AE zone comes across and hits our building, which is our building in gray. This is the historic Annapolis building. our property line does align with Stark Naps building, as well as, this is Mills here. But because FEMA does, the AE zone does hit up front of our building, we're required to put in storm-proof the front of our building, basically. And we've chosen something that's a temporary structure. And I have a cut sheet of it in here.
Yes. Yeah, there's a great shot of it.
Pretty nice building. I think it's a great building. Front, from as you walk down, well, this is the view from Compromise Street, down by the playground, or down by the Marriott or whatever it's called now. And we have rooftop units. This rooftop unit serves this building. This is on the back of Mills, on the back of the storage side. This serves our building. Part of our proposal is to get rid of this unit and put in smaller units on our rooftop. And I have a plan of that in the cut sheets. This is the back of our building from the elementary school or Board of Ed property. Again, this is from Green Street, and this is in the alley between our building, and this is the Stark Annapolis. Is that the museum, Tim?
Yes.
Yeah, museum. Just a typical floor plan, not that it, let me go back. Along with the window replacements and new doors at the first floor, and we're proposing on the rear upper third floor, a couple of exit doors. But we'd also like to look at putting balconies, shallow balconies on the front facade. And we have pictures of other balconies. I mean, across from Acton Landing, they just put in some a couple years ago. So we'd like to look at balconies on this component of the building. And then on the back of the building, maybe a rooftop deck, which you can look down and get a peek down. You can look into the Summer Garden Theater from here. And that's part of our proposal. Typical floor plan, just, for this second floor, a couple simple balconies off the front of the building, not as deep as our property line, holding them back, keep them at 4 to 5 feet. So they're not proud of the building. They're behind the front of Stark Annapolis Foundation building. They're behind that facade. They're also behind the Mills facade. Here's a roof plan, which I think is pretty important. This building, pretty clean. This is building next to us. This is the back of Mills. This is Stark Annapolis Museum. This mechanical unit serves 93 Main. So the plan is to remove this building, and replace it because we're going to have a dozen small apartments with small individual mini or split HVAC splits. And instead of keeping it on this side of the building, which you have a view of Compromise Street, we propose to tuck it on the back side of the building, and we have a view of we have elevations we can look at. It seems to be the least intrusive. Mr. Tower and I walked the site. We looked at it from this zone, and it could be on this roof as well. It struck me that this was more of a primary view, and this was really a secondary view. So if they're tucked in here, small units would not exceed the roof height, would not exceed the ridge, but I think either of these roofs could work. I just prefer this. I think Mr. Tower may have preferred this.
Hey, Jay, can I interrupt real quick?
Sure.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you. So if anyone else could put themselves on mute. I can't quite tell.
I'm getting some background.
Yeah, so if you're not talking, if you could put yourself on mute, please. Okay, back to you, Jay.
And Tim, this was your view at some point. When you, if I may step back, when you said view of Church Circle, I was like, holy moly, how do you see Church Circle? But no, it was market. Let's see. So proposed roof, this existing metal roof, we've matched there's no repairs, it's in good shape. These would be the new HVAC units. And this is the proposed 2 small decks on this piece of roof, invisible from virtually anywhere, except and we proposed to use a wire rail type railing because visually it's virtually invisible. And see, a 1970s building, we have railings around the city. This was the most recent on Franklin Street. This is the Marriott on the water side. This is the olive oil store on Main Street. And these are the old Francis Street, Maryland Inn, Rubino's. I don't even know what this building is. It's a Long Foster. No, it's a real estate office, and then really heavy wrought iron, or I guess it's wrought iron. So these were actually Marketplace at one time. I don't think they exist anymore. So just different railings in the city. Again, this was the most recent, and we would our intent would be, the way they built this one, they put an H-beam bracket against the building, and then use that a steel beam column, and then put brackets. And we'd like not to do this. We'd like a cleaner type balcony. Get rid of these brackets. And I don't know if wrought iron railings are really should be downtown like that. Again, I think that's for discussion. And there's actually many more we didn't include. So existing front of our building and proposed front. Existing windows replaced. We're proposing 2 new doors and their egress doors, but to access a balcony, and just simple balconies at each of the floors. And they again would come out less than the distance of this existing facade. They'd be behind the facade by 2 or 3 feet. They'd also be behind the facade, the historic Annapolis building facade. This is actually looking from Compromise Street, if you will, looking up, and the idea being this is the existing and facade, and there's the large mechanical systems that's here. We want to remove that, and then we're proposing to put a small deck here. I mean, we haven't detailed it, with a single egress door to get out onto the deck, and these are existing HVAC units, we'd remove those. Although they're shown here, we would remove them. We'd replace them. This is looking from the grounds of Green Street Elementary at the existing back. This is existing, and we propose deck, an egress door here, and smaller units here. This is actually the alley side of the building, right against Historic Annapolis Foundation Museum. Existing, replace the windows for egress windows and tuck in the HVAC right in here. HVAC units. This is existing, I'm sorry, existing, proposed. And then these are our balconies, we're thinking. On the front of the building, this is the market space side of the building. This existing canopy over the ATM machine, that beautiful machine. Let's see, I'll run through. How about some questions before I go through this list?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, there are lots of aspects of this that touch on our guidelines. But okay, John Tower, would you like to kick us off with your thoughts on feasibility?
You're
You're
muted.
still muted, John. First time Zoom.
So I said sorry, but no one could hear me. So anyway, I met with Jay at the site, and we looked at different possibilities. And I encourage Jay to come to the pre-app because I thought it was a worthwhile project, and also I thought that there was the possibility of putting the project through after a pre-app and commenting and so on into public hearing because there was a discussion of possibly doing things in stages. Is this the most important thing is how strong are these is the effect of the changes. Standing with Jay, looking at the placement for the HVAC, the effect of the HVAC in the back of the building is relatively small. So that has a very minor effect on viewscapes and streetscapes. And also, I would say that the deck, the proposed deck, is located in a place that's actually very hard to see from most vantage points. If you wanted to see it, you'd have to be fairly far down Compromise Street, or you'd have to have a particular view from Green Street up to that. So I thought that was well considered. In terms of the building itself, I didn't really know Mr. Birch, but he is actually fairly prominently featured as an architect in downtown Annapolis. And I'm not sure at what point we may want to consider his contribution to Main Street and market space to be significant. At this point, I still regard these buildings as not contributing. And so that means that it's easier to look at potential changes to the buildings as not harming historic fabric, but look at them in the context of how the changes will affect adjacent buildings. What my predecessor used to call Juliet balconies on the front, and I think there may be a little bit bigger than that, was something that was added to different buildings. Actually, they're really not. So Jay, I guess you changed that a bit. We were talking about possibly doing individual balconies, but these are really more like porches, not essentially balconies. So in terms of their linearity, they fit with the building. In terms of their context, it's difficult for me to say. I honestly don't know how to assess them with 99 Main Street. With Mills Liquor, I would say they fit right in terms of the railing design. It seems to be a kind of maritime theme when you're trying to minimize the obstruction of views, or even the prominence of the railing material that is the railing that is frequently chosen. So from my standpoint, I don't think that there are, let's say, strong conflicts with guidelines. And with that, I'll turn it over to you for discussion.
Yeah, there are multiple aspects that you touched on that we can talk about. I think the placement of the HVAC units, the balconies, the roof decks, the replacement of the windows. So maybe we could just each touch, commissioners touch on each of those. So Will, go ahead.
I'll be brief, and I will make my comments mostly based on our guideline, which advises not to create a false sense of history. I think the building itself did a nice job of acknowledging the historical architecture without mimicking it. And I think Jay has done a very good job working with John to continue that. So in my opinion, this is a completely feasible project as it is. I leave it to the rest of you to discuss finer points.
Okay. Kevin?
Yeah, I'd agree. I'm excited to have more residents downtown, and I'm appreciative of the investment that the owners want to put in the property, and it's an exciting prospect. And since the footprint isn't changing and the massing isn't really changing, it's a great opportunity. I'm excited for it.
Okay, and Kim?
I'm similarly thinking that having more residential opportunities downtown is interesting. And I actually thought that the balconies provided an interesting enlivenment of the streetscape on this building. It made it more friendly and less closed off. So I really thought most of the visual aspects of it on the street and the change to a residential use seemed to be consistent with some other changes we've approved, and Jay's pointed those buildings out. And I think that I don't have any real issues with it at this point. No.
Okay. All right, great. I would concur. It does touch on a bunch of our guidelines. I just wanted to ask one or two confirming questions. The replacement windows I think these are kind of a bronze aluminum clad window, so the color is going to be effectively the same. Is that right, Jay?
Correct. You're right. It's a faded bronze right now.
Yeah.
So, we would look at the color samples and, provide them or meet John or you or at the site.
Mhm.
They're faded. We can't match the fade.
Right. No.
So they're not going to be black. Definitely not black.
Or green or white.
No, it'll be a bronze, this classic Pella bronze, and bronze
And they
is
fade.
dark brown.
Yeah. And if we're looking at our guidelines, these effectively are the balconies. So I'll address the balconies first. In my mind, they are additions to the building, and they therefore fall under some of our guidelines that have to do with additions. And they shouldn't overwhelm the building, and they don't. And the additions as they're presented don't also have an adverse impact on the adjacent buildings. And I think the choice of a wire railing is a good choice. Anything else would not, honestly, I can't even imagine what else you would put on this.
Yeah.
To make sense. And anything you put on it would attract attention to it, and that's the opposite effect. And if you made little Juliet balconies, it would just get all much more busy. So I do think the simple wire, which we do see on residential buildings elsewhere in the historic district, So that's consistent with other decisions we've made. The what we are calling the roof deck, there's a very specific guideline about roof shapes that we talk about, D9. That has to do with putting a roof on top of a gable. So you're not putting a roof up on top. You're not putting a widow's peak on top of the gabled roof. So these are actually roofs on top of flat existing surfaces. You're taking a gable away, just and on the backside, but they are not. They are consistent, at least with the intent of the guideline, which strongly discourages roof decks. And we've just recently done that on other residential buildings. There's also a little bit of so you have to cut through some masonry here to put the doors in. But as John said, this is not a contributing building, and so I don't think that that cut through of a door, making a door into a window, which could be important in a historic building, is not an issue here. And the placement of you're removing the roof, existing roof, to put those HVAC units in. Again, not a historic roof.
What, I mean, the removal of the old system.
No, where you're moving them to, you have to cut out the gable roof to put those.
We'll just put a little, we'll put a little dunnage platform, so we won't lose any roof, I don't believe.
Oh, actually, you build it out, so you're not actually, okay.
Yeah. We'll leave
All
the
right.
roof intact.
Okay, that's fine. It's not, my point is that was consistent. It's not a historic roof.
Well,
And the
roof's
view
in-
of, that's a bunch of units. But visually, I agree. It's going to be, even if you're up on, maybe on the second floor of the Green Street School, you might see those units, but they're not visually going to have an adverse impact.
really tucked.
Yeah. So a good location for those. The only other question I had that for a complete application might be any kind of lighting, exterior lighting that you might be thinking of.
Yep, got it.
We would want to look at that and make sure it's not, we make sure it's compliant.
Yeah, nice.
And yeah, and any kind of mock-ups. I love the 5D picture you have up right now. I think that you might be able to do a little mock-up there that proves everything that I kind of just said.
Yeah, good. One thing I didn't really talk about, and I don't know if for the commission, but we will provide a temporary closure for storm action against this door.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
It's temporary. It's I think it's in the back of this. Whole
Yeah,
pack.
I saw that. I think that's a fascinating design that other people around Market Space can adopt.
I know we need all of this. We gave it to you anyway.
And it's stored, I guess, it's stored inside
It's
there.
stored inside. It can be stored inside. So
Yeah,
we're looking at
fascinating.
different ones. There's a bunch of them out there now. And this one's pretty simple to install. I mean, and so it's a requirement of the permit office of the codes and of FEMA. Talked to John Manessa about it, and not about this one specifically, but it's required for that opening we're using right now. The new
That's-
existing front door.
That's fascinating. It's an Irish company too, which is fun. Are you replacing the elevator?
No,
None
because
of my business. None of my business.
well, no, I mean, if we did, but no, until I get in a fight with Mr. Blomley, we're going to maintain our existing elevator.
Okay,
And because of the number of units and the height of the building, we're not required to provide a new elevator.
Okay.
But that's to be determined.
yes, it's not, I was kind of just commenting on my experience with that particular elevator.
Well, it's old and small. There's actually two
Yeah, it is.
two
It's-
stairs inside, and we're going to get rid of one of the stairs as well.
All right. Well, then, Any other comments from commissioners? There are obviously some other zoning things. It looks, there's no height changes, and the C2 does in fact encourage a residential above commercial on Main Street. So this would
And
be a step in the right direction.
in C2, there's no parking requirement, even though this will require less parking than an office use would require.
Interesting. Yeah.
C2 under 20,000 feet, there's no parking requirement, which is odd. That's all.
What? Yeah, Jackie, hi. That
I
was,
would
I was
just
basically cueing you there, Jackie.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just a little, so when Jay said that a portion of the building, the main is not included in the building,
Yeah,
Correct.
and that was somehow separated off through a condominium subdivision?
I assume that's how it was done. It's a legal separation.
it
So
actually,
you've seen you've seen all of that paperwork?
Uh,
Because I'm looking at until 2002, all of these buildings owned, were all joined together. They separated them. The Mills portion and this portion were all on one deed, and Janice and Cynthia separated them.
Yeah, it's been separated and
I just, but I didn't realize they weren't separated as just along that wall, that they've separated a piece of, they've somehow done something more complicated.
it's curious.
yes, they have.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we would probably want to see the paperwork on that to understand, and how, but there is a wall between the two buildings. It has, it's that, is that a party wall between the Mills building and the,
It's an open, it's actually part of the retail space.
Yeah,
so that space there is so do you think this was all built as one building?
well, this is, I believe, Mills is an old building.
It
I don't
is.
know as a fact. Our building is built was occupied in 1970, from what we can tell.
Okay.
This is,
The retail space extends
These different
across
walls.
into.
but yeah, the retail space extends into this room.
Okay,
And
Correct.
I think there's arched openings.
There are big, really strong arches there.
okay,
that-
okay. I just think we kind of need to understand a little bit more about how all of that
Okay,
was functionally done. I'm not saying, because it's kind of an unusual arrangement, but, and so is that the only thing that is shared between the two structures? Is that one space?
this is considered one, well, from the use, it's one use. We will have to ensure that we have a fire separation between
Yeah,
this and the rest, which is, it's concrete floor, so it's easy enough to do. And Tim had said earlier, Mr. Lay had said earlier that, at one point, this side was storage. And there's
Mhm.
doors in this wall still, but that will go away. The doors will go away.
okay.
So right now, this is.
You mean on the second floor?
On the
They're on
second,
the second floor. It's a liquor storage.
and so,
Because the second floor is not, even though there are doors there, it's not really open and used as one thing,
correct.
as it is on the first floor, is what
Correct.
you're saying. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I just think we just need to understand a little bit more about how all that functions.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
And then there do seem to be some common use alleyway space associated with this building. Is that to the right?
To the right, correct.
Mhm. Is there another use in common alleyway at the rear?
No,
No, it's,
it abuts the Anne Arundel Board of Ed property.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I see a reference in the deed descriptions to the center line of a 5.7 foot wide alleyway, and I couldn't figure out where that was. I was just reading the deeds.
yeah. All right. All right. Thanks.
So-
Thanks, Jackie.
Okay, just like to
In the
understand
interest-
it a
yeah.
little bit better.
That's awesome. Thanks. I always want to
Okay.
help move the process forward.
Yes, great
right.
idea to convert it to residential, though. I think that's really, that's really welcome. We would like to see a lot more of that occur. up and down
Absolutely.
Main Street.
And we will
Those
sprinkle,
are going to be the affordable apartments, aren't they? Isn't that what you told me earlier today, that these are all going to be for?
Oh, yeah, very.
This is outside, that's outside of our scope.
that's a different project. So,
Oh, okay. I got confused.
yeah.
All right, well, I think I kind of in my comments, I don't need to necessarily go back through my comments, but as I was commenting there, I was basically making our summary that there are several aspects, design aspects, the window and door system replacement, the balconies and their rail design, the roof deck, the roof shape, and a little bit of cutting of masonry. Those are the main topics we talked about. And I only made one comment in terms of final, and that would be there's going to be some lighting, I assume, on the exterior
Right.
that would be useful. So I think that I kind of summarized already, so I don't think I need to repeat that. Any other comments from commissioners before we? I think we have deemed this a feasible project. Yep. Okay. All right. With hearing no more comments, thanks everybody, and we look forward to a full application.
Thanks
I
so
think-
much.
Are you on the agenda already for
We are.
June? Okay,
are.
great. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Have a good weekend. It's going to be
Thanks.
a nice
Thanks,
weekend.
Jay.
Be spectacular.
And David.
All right, next on our agenda is St. Mary's and the project to renovate another place that I know very well. Okay, hi, Stacy and Chris, welcome. Welcome to, I'm not sure you've ever presented to us before, but you're welcome. And you heard our statement before. This is a pre-application, which we encourage applicants to do to provide input as you're developing your design in terms of its feasibility and compliance with our guidelines. And I just want you to understand that it is not an approval or disapproval in any way, and I just need you to acknowledge that.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So over to you. Just tell us what your project's like, and then we'll have a conversation.
I'd like to share my screen and get started. Is that okay?
Absolutely,
Wonderful.
that's the way we do it.
Okay, and our goal of this meeting is to get any conflicts with guidelines that you guys could identify would be very helpful.
Okay,
I've done presentations to HPC years and years ago, so any help would be wonderful.
that's what we're here for.
And Stacy, shall we kick it off with you?
That'd be great. I'm going to start the presentation and then Chris is going to come in. And of course, I'm sure I will forget many things and she'll help me out with that as well. So I thank you very much for your time. This project is focused on a specific area. I'm assuming everyone is pretty familiar with St. Mary's High School. Quite. So off of Duke of Gloucester is this driveway which comes between the gym, and it's literally, if you're coming from Church Circle and you're going towards Eastport, you would make a right before St. Mary's Church, and St. Mary's Church is that right on the right. And the top 3 images are drone pictures of the specific area that we're talking about. And then the little image off to the left is a picture of St. Mary's High School from Duke of Gloucester. That's the the little picture, the little image. Sorry, Chris is, yeah. That one is that's the picture of St. Mary's High School from Duke of Gloucester. So that is kind of what we're using to get our contextual references from.
And we're trying to, as you can see, this high school doesn't have any type of contributing historical character, and we're trying to fold elements into the campus as we touch an area on the campus, we like to try to kind of fold elements to, we're not mimicking the historic, but we're trying to tie in the campus as a cohesive theme.
Right. So what I want everyone to be aware of is we're not adding any interior square footage. We're not increasing occupancy. The main goal of this project, it has, we want to have a safer way for the kids to walk, and we want a more handicap accessible. And like Chris just said, a more cohesive contextualism to the high school itself. So the driveway, we're not actually changing. So I don't know if, if you've ever if you've ever attended a basketball game, or if you've ever attended play at St. Mary's, you have to park in the parking lot behind the church, and then you walk literally on the sidewalk for a bit, and then you're in the middle of the street, and then you get back onto the sidewalk and enter the high school and Duke of Gloucester. Also, if you've ever been a visitor to the school and you wanted to go where the offices were, you have no idea where that is. That's actually the first image with the little blue awning. That's a great deal of focus for this project, and that's where the offices are. So what we've done is we've created a porch in front of that entry to kind of give the school, this is where we want you to come in. This is where the offices are. And we wanted to give it the language that you see of the high school entrance of Duke of Gloucester. Now, you also will see there's a brick wall that exists along the road right now. And we're maintaining that same line, only we're making that a more continuous brick wall, and then putting a line of trees and lighting. And then we have the walkway, a handicap walkway, accessible walkway, as well as a regular stairs. So that there's a tree lined sort of safety in this street section. So it's car, tree, then pedestrian.
And we have more views in this set to explain each of these elements.
Yeah, this is kind of to give you the big general overview.
And luckily we have been able to review these. Luckily we get all of the, as a commission, I'm not sure you know that, but we get these, we get these shared with us. So thanks. Yes.
That's our intent.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've all been able to look at them. So.
I'm thrilled. Thank you. Yeah. So what's interesting is if you look at the center picture, you see 2 handicapped parking spots there. Right now, if you park there and you're handicapped and you want to enter the school, since these are at the bottom of the stairs, you have to wheel out into the street and then wheel back up Duke of Gloucester to go to the ramp entry near Marion Hall. And then if you're going to the office, you got to go all the way through the whole school to get to the office. So, it's not safe. It's not, and another issue is lighting here too, which we'll get into more detail, but it's very dark and scary here at night. There's overgrown shrubbery. They find needles and bad drinking bottles and all kinds of stuff in the shrubs, and it's dark. So, we're proposing these lights that maybe, and then we also want to, this is St. Mary's, and we want you to know you've actually entered the high school. I don't know if you've ever been around that campus where a visitor was there. Everyone asks you, where's the high school? How do you go in? Nobody knows unless they've been there. And so we're proposing this kind of lamps with signs saying St. Mary's High School, marching you along. You see, we added a red brick circle for the cars. So the idea is if you're driving here, this would almost be raised kind of a little bit. So it's almost like a speed bump, because another factor here is all of St. Mary's High School brand new drivers park in this parking lot, and they fly. They fly down this road that has people walking in the middle of it. And so this would be kind of a sort of a speed bump too, sort of a aspect to it. All right, Chris, should we move on into the, okay, so here is a more detailed look at this porch. And you can see in this image how it relates to the entry on Duke of Gloucester. We're using that same language. We aren't touching the building. That's the same wall. Those are the same windows. It's literally an exterior porch that says, this is St. Mary's entry, not a blue awning. A little different. And here you see a little bit more detail of this circle, and then how you would get into this system of ramps where you could ramp up to this porch, or you could ramp up to Duke of Gloucester, or up to hallway. Well, no, you can ramp all the way up to Duke of Gloucester from there. So next one. Okay, so one of the other things what we want to talk to you about is that we want to, in order to have enough space for this tree-lined area, if you look in image 2, the walkway from Duke of Gloucester, you'll see the ramp with a set of stairs. We need to push that retaining wall back. That's that's behind that, where we are holding that post that's there, and we would push the retaining wall back, this arched with the bench. And this really looks like a new wall. That part of it, I think, was added fairly recently. It looks fairly new. So we're just taking it back to that point. And then maybe we'd have an arched kind of thing that says St. Mary's High School. So you're walking, you're walking onto the campus. Maybe there'd be another pillar on the corner right next to the church, because I'm going to be honest, cars, there's no curb there. There's nothing to keep cars from the people entering the church. It's a bit of a thing. Safety concern as well. So again, the main, so Chris, maybe like with the pointers, show them how they would go from that circle and they would ramp all the way up to the street. So you would come up there, and then to this area, and then to outside of the gym, and then all the way up to this street. So it's a nice way to go to a basketball game if you have mobility problems. And by the way, a lot of those kids get ACL injuries, and I have seen them all hop up those stairs. So this would get a much nicer way to go into the school. And you can, of course, ramp.
Yeah, a quick clarifying question. It looks like the pavement changes there. There's like a hatched area there with concrete and brick pavers. Is that what you're thinking there? Right.
Right here?
Well,
Yes.
they could all be brick, but maybe they'd be
It's
more
up to you.
color. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're just thinking of an area that could be
Yeah.
used like nice, instead of just the concrete that it is now.
Yeah, okay.
But be maybe more decorative, and it be kind of a place where the kids can have tables, and but it would be all flat. That area would be all that same level that you ramp up to, and then and then this is another area, high school hall C, we're calling it, where this would be. Have you ever been on a college campus where they call them, kind of nickname them, Google steps, where you have stairs, and then on either side, almost every other riser is a bench. And so it could actually be kind of a place where you can have an outdoor classroom. You can have, you can be waiting to be picked up. I don't know if you guys know St. Mary's, but if you do, you know Brad Best. And he teaches
we know that.
PE in the street, and this would give him a place with the kids out of the street.
The weight room is right there.
Yes, exactly.
And one other little note there, this is also for the support of the cathedral. So there's handicap parking here. They can cross this, there's a small ramp, and they can take this circulation to the cathedral.
It's just a church. It's just a church. It's not a cathedral.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Sure.
It's beautiful, but it's not a cathedral.
It's beautiful.
But that's a good point, Chris. Like, making that sidewalk brick right there, you know, so that it's easily seen when you have to cross it. So if you're parked in those handicap parking spaces, this would lead you into a way to safely, you know, wheel up to the church as well. And
Why
anything
don't I
else?
go into some details, and if you think of
Yeah.
something, you can
No, I
chime
think-
in.
I think where there's what we like to do is kind of break it into pieces for discussion, and then I'll ask John. But this touches on a whole bunch of guidelines, and there's some aspects of additions. So the new roof over the entry is an addition, and some of the added features on the facade are additions. There are so differentiation is important in making sure. We'll talk a little bit more about making sure it isn't a false, that doesn't look, it's not mimicking. You used exactly the right word. You're not mimicking the form. So we want to talk a little bit about that. There's lots of railing details here, which we'll talk about in terms of what use of materials there that we're having there. And then paving and landscape materials are also important. To a certain extent, there's not much ground disturbance here, but you'll also be touching on some archaeology potential, but I don't think you're going to hit much there. So we have 4 or 5 topics that we can touch on as we have our conversation here. So with that, well, John Tower, would you like to give us your thoughts as we start?
So I looked at this primarily as an addition, and that is on the high school entrance. And then even though it's not historic, I thought that it was an improvement to ADA compliance and access, which I think is an important component of this. And I looked at it in terms of its architectural vocabulary for the existing structures, which I don't consider to be contributing. And in fact, it still makes me wonder why the entrances on the side there are so understated, why they were always designed to be so incredibly understated when they get so much use. In those terms, I consider this to be compliant. The appearance of the porch, well, its vocabulary is classical, but the building is late 20th century. So I don't think that there's the possibility of a false sense of history. The landscaping just makes the buildings more accessible and safer. It's not disturbing any historic material. The one possibility for, let's say, an interpretation of an element being historic is possibly the arched entrance. But I have to say, it's a nice way to define the entrance, and maybe it's always been lacking. It seems altogether, I think that this is cohesive and an improvement to an area that has really not been well designed, and let's say had different improvements over the years, but this is in totality. So from Duke of Gloucester Street to the high school entrance, it draws it all together. In terms of conflicts with guidelines, the front arch is the only one that I see as a possibility with the lamps, because the lights because they sort of have an older appearance. Would they be mistaken for something older? I don't think so. it was good that the applicants scrambled to get here, because I think we just met last week. But I appreciate that, and I'm going to turn it over to the commissioners now.
Okay. All right. Yes, Will.
What John said.
Okay. Good enough.
Yeah, I
was
mean,
that?
that was a
What
very
John
good
said,
summary, but
yeah,
I
yeah.
would suggest looking a little bit more at the pediment and the little cupola-like device that supports the cross. That might be done in a way that was a little more, a little less obvious.
Yeah, a little less detail, a little simplicity is the
Exactly.
detail that we're looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Okay.
what I was thinking.
Do not, mimicking is not the answer. It's simplicity.
Sure, we can do that.
All right,
Other
Bill.
than that, I think it's great.
Bill.
Yeah, John had an excellent breakdown. It's almost like he actually looked at the project. But, and Will, I agree with, the entrance was kind of bothering me because it's like this, it's almost like a historic element was just tacked on to the more modern building.
Yeah.
The way it sits, and that kind of disturbed me. I like the general take. I've been on that side of the building quite often. It always seemed like you were going down a back alley.
Mhm.
The circle bothers me in that if you go back to the plan, and I was looking at this in the rendering here, but if you go back to the plan, you see it clear.
Which one would you like to go to, sir?
There you
There was one other. There was one other. There we go. If you see you're coming down the street, you're aimed right at the center of the circle.
Mm-hmm.
That would, to me, driving in would tend to make me want to go right around the circle and then come back out again. I can also see our new drivers coming down there and just zipping around on the left. So it's sort of creates this sort of confused traffic situation, because you're also going to have cars coming to the circle and making the left into the parking. And I'd like to see that studied a little more, just for traffic control, if nothing else. It may be the circle gets bigger.
And I think I understand what you're saying.
I
If
know
you were to
it's not-
take,
Does it make you? Sorry.
if you take this drawing and actually extend it to the left further,
Mhm.
we know what's there is a big parking lot. So if you extend it to the left, this drawing, then we might get a better sense of the whole site.
Yeah.
And how that circle, maybe it can be smaller. Yeah, just going over into the parking lot, you'll get a better sense of how that circle works.
I
with
don't
actual
have much
traffic.
of the parking lot. I'm trying to see if there's anything that I've got that could help.
Yeah, you just need to pull back a little bit from a plan. Yeah, everything to the left of these drawings is a massive parking lot.
Yeah.
And we all know how that parking lot works. So I think to address Bill's concern, you might actually shrink that circle a little bit so you don't suck people into the right, which is wouldn't be the right thing to do.
And
Or
Bill- I'm sorry.
I was going to say, or perhaps the school's logo in the middle goes away and that just turns into a pull-off area.
Is it because it's a convex?
No,
Do you think it's a problem, or, and I'm just asking because I want to get everybody's point of view.
what I'm looking at makes me think the circle is either too small or it's way too large, and it's just.
I'm
just-
thinking
I have
if
that-
you
it's in
made
the
it,
way. The way it's set
if
up.
if you made it smaller, you wouldn't perceive it as something you drive around.
Right.
Which is
Correct.
correct.
If you
Which-
pull up the site plan that Bay Engineering prepared, that was part of your package, I think you
Sure.
have a
Yeah.
better
Absolutely.
sense of how it integrates. But I think we do need to look at that it cannot impact in any way the flow of traffic onto the site. There are
Yeah.
already humongous problems with the flow of traffic off of Duke of Gloucester onto the St. Mary's site, and we
Yeah.
need to make sure that it's not going to cause more confusion
Yes, and
and
this will
more backup.
exactly. This will come up in a different commission's review of this,
Yeah.
not necessarily ours, but it's worthwhile talking about.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You're getting there now.
Right.
Yeah, and really the intent was more about a speed bump in a, not, just to slow you down so you knew that there, you were going by the entrance.
Yeah, well, I think the concept of creating an entrance and signifying the entrance is a good one. That's what we would be discussing, but the size of it and the traffic and the bump part of it wouldn't really be in the HPC's discussion, so.
Maybe it also doesn't need to be a circle. Maybe it could be a different shape, because the circle makes you think
An
that
oval,
And
it's
oval.
just some other shape other than a circle.
It's just,
Something to think about.
I see people going around on the left because it's easier than going on the right.
Mhm.
Well, there's an island here, so I don't think you physically can.
Well, if
That's
you can get
correct.
one, but if you can get one car out, you can get one car in. That's.
I think
we
that
will
just
look-
needs more work.
look-
I just
you
got
know,
out
we
of
will be
teenage-
looking at all of that with the minor
Yeah.
site design that would
The
be
minor
required
site
of the
design will
I
take
project.
care of all that.
I understand. I just got out of the teenage years with my boys, so
No, we want to hear any comment you have. We want to hear any comment you
yes, we
have, 'cause
spent-
that'll help us,
no.
keep cooking it.
I know you all had a meeting last week with some of the zoning staff, but this will require a minor site design review that you will need to
Correct.
complete before you can be scheduled for your
Absolutely.
HPC hearing. So we'll look
Yeah,
at that as well
I
as.
think you'll
other
work
issues.
it, yeah.
And I'm
All
sorry.
right, Kevin, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not worried about the high school building being confused for a historic building, but the church, and as mentioned, was the pediment on the left side of the street, could easily be confused for being historic with the church being on that.
You think
So-
this right here?
Yeah, specifically the one on the left.
Let me get into full view. I apologize. So this right here, correct?
Yeah, it's on the left side of the street, because that's the side with the church that
Yes.
is historic versus the side with the school building, which clearly isn't. I would have more concerns with that pediment on the left side.
Okay.
Yeah,
Could
that-
it be, if we did a more contemporary light fixture, would that help? Or,
Well, I think for one thing, you probably want to put the church in this drawing. This drawing is not really accurate because the church wall is right there on the left.
I got something here.
Um,
I apologize for scrolling with you. It can be kind of difficult. Okay, I've got an image of the church that I think would be helpful. So I asked.
Yeah,
for-
I'm not sure. Yeah, frankly, I'll just jump in. I'm not sure that pillar there is, one back, go back one.
Yeah, I don't, I
Uh,
thought-
yeah, I'm
Stacy, I
not
thought
sure
we
you're gonna be
had
able
the
to-
Sidewalk.
That pillar is gonna get hit by traffic all the time.
yeah, it was an attempt at putting something between the pedestrian and,
Yeah, I think that
because
pillar
right
just might be
now,
unnecessary.
they do
There
drive
it is.
over that
That's the image
curve.
I was trying to get.
There, yeah, that's the image, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
we
but
were
that
just-
pillar there is gonna get hit all the time.
Yeah,
So,
we were just trying to separate, since there's no curb here, we were just.
That's a
trying
different
to create-
project. That might be a different project.
Yeah. could be.
Yeah, okay.
I would say
It
that's
can
a different
go.
project.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
part of that even is like, anyway, that resolves my concern, or that addresses my concern with that particular pillar. It's because it's so close to the church, there could be confusion there. And if
Okay.
the purpose is to create a safety separation, I mean, I would even prefer just some basic bollards there, but would be like
Different.
that's probably a separate project and independent. Even that one side of the street, I would address that independently.
No problem. We were tasked to create a safer thing, and we just thought of that, and we can.
No, it's a good thought.
Yeah, certainly valid to protect the building and the people from the street there. That's valid.
Okay. All right, Kim?
Yeah, I appreciate all the comments that other commissioners and John made before me. Basically, I really appreciate the effort to take over that streetscape, even though it's a private streetscape there, and tie it together and make it a more cohesive area that's pulling to some other functions out into the street or a street side there. So I think overall, I think there's some refinement to be done, but I think you've been very thoughtful so far. And I think it's going to be a major improvement along that street, because usually every time I've gone in there, it's you drive quickly through that area trying to figure out where you need to be next.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's a great, great explanation.
Okay.
Very worried about, people coming out and you going in and,
And I've almost been hit.
Yeah. All right. Well, it seems like in general, there's a favorable response to the overall concepts that have been presented. Some refinement is needed. It does touch on a whole series of guidelines. I'll break it down. The main entrance to the school is an addition with that porch. And the massing is consistent, doesn't overwhelm any historic structure, but keeping the column and any kind of dentils and the cupola simple in design is going to be important. Right now it's a little bit mimicky, I would say. There's some mimicking going on there that I understand where you're going with it, but I think simplifying that would be important to be compliant with our not creating a false sense of history. I also look pretty closely at the heights, and this is in the lowest height district, and it looks like you're okay, but you might want to check carefully. The cupola might exceed the height limit, but I think in other situations where we have the height limit was 32 feet. The cupola could be considered somewhat of an accessory piece, and you get an extra 2.5 feet there, but you might want to check in your drawings. I think I read it correctly, but it looks to me like the roof, the top of the hip roof is 27 feet, and the cupola might be touching the limit there. So you just want to check that.
Okay.
One question, Tim, on that. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is measuring the height of the cupola, we're sitting on sort of a hill there. So, Jackie, where would the proper measurement be taken from? Do you know?
An
For
average?
for the height,
Yeah.
It's where the facade hits the grade is where it's
yeah,
taken from.
you measure you can't from grade, and then you would, so that's a separate building from the other building, correct?
Yeah, well, they're connected. They're all
It's
connected.
connected right here.
See, we'll have to think about that in terms of, when it starts talking about buildings that are more than a certain width, you have to measure. I think you'd measure each element. So, okay, I would say preliminarily, you would be just measuring from the highest point of that one section of the building from grade.
So it'd be the right-hand corner?
Be way up here, wouldn't it?
Well, that's a different section.
What's that?
It's a weird.
If buildings are broken into a series of elements and they're more than a certain width, I think you do multiple measurements, as I recollect.
That's correct.
So
we face this with the
one with
garage.
the cupola, we would be just the little one at the end where the circle is, that's where the cupola is going, correct?
Correct, right there.
So I think we would be looking at that element as an element of the whole building.
Exactly.
Are you calling the whole building this whole thing?
Everything that's connected becomes
gotcha.
one building.
Yes, ma'am. Gotcha.
But I don't think it's going to, in the end, I don't think
Yeah.
it's going to be an issue because it's not going to exceed I don't think the height of the building to the right, of the roof to the right, so.
Well, we will verify. We will verify.
And then the only other thing I wanted to ask is, isn't the church is controlled by one group of people and the school by a different board of directors, I believe. So
They're all joined
It's
together.
all controlled by the Redemptress.
The Redemptress. Well,
okay, so there's not, so this is all being coordinated in terms of what you're doing, which is that common use driveway.
Mhm. Yeah, the
Yes.
head
Okay.
pastor, Father Pat, is the
Okay.
deciding
Father.
factor.
correct.
I think in the past, there have on occasion been some conflicting opinions between the church and the school about things that were proposed for the totality of the property, and it's just something to be aware of. But it sounds
don't
like
think
you
that-
all have worked that out already.
I don't think that affects the school and the church per se.
Right, well,
You might be referring to something else. Okay,
Okay.
going on, I think there were a few other comments. I mean, I think your choice of light fixtures is going to be important, and again, for not having a false sense of history. There are light fixtures in the parking lot already. You
Yeah,
may
you
want
see
to.
them, yeah, in the middle picture.
Yeah, there, exactly. You know, I would say from a consistency point of view, you may want to adopt that, because the ones you've got drawn here have a little bit more, they look octagonal versus the rectangular one. So I think keeping it, again, the theme here is simple.
Yeah, they were
and-
supposed to be the same.
Is he
Okay.
saying, yeah, this is was supposed to be like that?
Okay, that a consistency, and that's a simple design, rectangular, not too elaborate, or giving an elegant. It's not an elegant situation. This is a relatively utilitarian area. The gate concept is actually, I think John pointed it out. I'm just summarizing it here. The gate on Duke of Gloucester Street will be very important in terms of its detail, because that's actually got the most significant impact on the streetscape, historic streetscape. So the details of that design are going to be important, and again, keeping it simple will be important, and and we'll probably be looking closely at that actual design aspect. The railing details it looks are pretty simple, and I love the drawing you had before from I recognize that's from the University of Virginia.
Yes,
I literally lived 10 feet from that exact picture.
What, Stacy, where was that?
he saw it in the set, so it's probably further in, Chris.
Yeah.
There you go, right
Yeah, there it
there.
is.
Right there, there it is.
No,
The
not that
bottom,
one.
the
The one on the
bottom,
lower right,
the
this one down here.
bottom.
So that's a very
No.
open rail. Yeah,
railing.
this one here. That's the
Really?
lawn,
I'm
University
sorry,
of
I'm
Virginia.
trying.
Oh, you were,
Yes.
yeah, that one.
There it is. That's a very open rail, which is great. The less elaborate, again, that you are, and if that's ADA compliant. I
That
think
was
that's
our basis of design. We're trying to show images because sometimes it's hard to draw or draft it so you can see it. So
yes.
you like that direction.
I think it complies with our guidelines in terms of
Great.
simplicity and no false sense of history.
Good.
I think I hit the roof shape, the hip roof you've got over the thing is consistent with the rest of the building, so that's also good. That's another guideline that I'll address in my summary when I write it up. But what I try to do is when I summarize after this, I'm going to be pointing to the guidelines that we've been talking about
Wonderful.
specifically. There's no demolition involved here, or the demolition that's involved doesn't involve any historic. Well, I think you're going to be removing some brick retaining walls, but none of
That,
it's
by the way,
historic.
have all been hit by so many cars.
They're falling
They're
apart.
pretty,
Yes.
Trying to find that picture of that.
Yeah. And then all of there's a whole section in our guidelines having to do with landscape materials. So we'll want to understand
We
in the
have
final. the
Deborah
final-
Schwab on our team.
There you go.
So
Well,
she's gonna
Deborah's been
sit-
through this many times.
Yeah,
So
I
she'll be
think
telling us about C1, all the C sections. So we'll be interested in planting, what your planting choices are, and the exact materials you're going to be using.
great.
So that level of detail will be important for the final application. And you're welcome to come back for another pre-app if you want to go through this again.
I think this has been very helpful.
Okay, yep. So have we provide you good feedback? I think generally the answer is this is feasible, and there's a lot of design components, but generally the simplicity in design is important, and then some of the traffic aspects will be dealt with by by the site design review, which
Right.
Jackie was referring to. Okay. Did I summarize, fellow commissioners? Okay, great. All right, thanks. We look forward to the next presentation.
thank
I-
you so much for your time.
Thank you
Of
for
course.
everybody's time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, one more item on the agenda is other business. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I only have one item that I'd like to just bring up, the ongoing discussion about the ordinance 1523 having to do with the change in the flood elevation thing is it hasn't moved anywhere in the last last week. It was reviewed at the Planning Commission in at length, in fact. So if you're interested, you can watch that. But they basically landed in the same place that we did, that the changes are clarifying existing code. And we are still, I think, as our commission, in support of the amendments that Ellie presented. I think the amendments, based on input, might be modified wording wise, not intent or in substantive, just some wording changes. So we're waiting for the cycle to move where her final amendments will be presented to the Rules Committee next week. I've been asked, I said, we've already kind of signed off on it as a commission. But what I need to do with you is when those final amendments come through, I will circulate them to you in intent and change. They're not much different. I'll circulate them to you to get your concurrence. And then I'll find out whether we actually have to vote on that in our early June meeting or not. I think the timing might be fine to do that, but I think in the abundance of caution, we should look at the final amendments, have you guys agree on all of it, and then we'll go and submit that to City Council. If does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. All right. Any other business? John, this is an administrative meeting, but if you have anything you'd like to update us on, please feel free.
Nothing. It's actually been a relatively quiet week since we last met, a little over a week. And the only thing that's coming about or changing are the seasonal parklets. And the first of the white barriers have been put in place. But I'm not sure that the program is going to be as popular as it previously was. But there's a lot of compliance from the restaurants now. And, of course, we're working one by one to get greater compliance. So
thank you.
And well, trying to fulfill the mission that we're trying to enhance the streetscape, not just exploit it for business. So it's supposed to be an enhancement. That's the goal. We have guidelines. And Will, you've got a highly attuned sense of aesthetics. I need you to come out and make some comments.
Anytime.
You can do it directly to the
Your
business
disposal.
owners. But it doesn't have to be filtered either.
Hey, John.
Filtered? Did you say it doesn't have to be filtered?
I said unfiltered.
What? How else do you think I was
Do it
gonna
as an individual without me being present.
Yeah, okay.
John, what are the guidelines that they've been given for decorating or adding accessories to these parklets? I saw one the day, it looked like they were taping up and gluing AstroTurf to the side of the barrier.
Well, that is
There's-
a sign of, immense classiness.
Yeah, we tried when we wrote our guidelines about parklets to address decoration, and it was we talked about natural materials,
Right.
specifically, and that the guideline specifies natural material.
But plastic
honestly,
grass doesn't count?
Plastic trees, plastic plants are specifically
So
They're
we
not- they're
think
not-
that plastic flowers have now been around for so long that they're probably historic.
Well, I remember like literally in the 90s, remember those huge arguments over that.
I was very disappointed to see that Cafe Normandy had removed all of its plastic flowers, and I was arranging to meet somebody for lunch, and I said, "Oh, it's the place that has the plastic flowers
All right.
outside," and they had taken them down. And they,
Yes.
Goodness.
But they
Yes.
still have those light poles out there.
They still have
Yeah.
the strange light poles, which are
Those
probably
have
not
taken on
compliant.
historic significance, so they'll be.
I
staying.
think John took all of those plastic flowers home.
But to answer your question, Bill, our guidelines talk about natural materials. not plastic.
I have not seen the AstroTurf, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that sounds lovely.
It looked like.
Who has
astroturf.
that? Who has AstroTurf?
It's on the right-hand side. I want to say, I'm going to mess this up and blame the wrong store, and I don't want to do that in a public venue.
All right, there you
But
go.
it's on the right-hand side as you go up in, I believe, the second block.
There's only
just-
one that I've seen, and that's in front of Preserve, and they had white barriers.
Mm.
That's probably the one.
Really? They preserved it AstroTurf? I'll
Well,
just talk to them.
it looked like to me AstroTurf. It was a sheet of something that was green and fuzzy. And at the time it was laying up on the barrier and someone was working on it, like they were.
It should be right now, it should be a planter with live material, with live
Or-
plants in it.
Or indoor outdoor velvet. Now that would be
Oh.
that would be a different story.
Velveteen,
Eesh. All right.
well, 70s history.
All right, any other business? And we've got a full agenda. We already see the agenda for our June public hearing, so. There are, and I see the agenda. I've looked at several of the, I think we've got a full set of drawings to look at for almost all of them, so.
And then the following meeting has applications also. 3.
The administrative meeting in June,
No, the next public hearing.
July.
Yeah, July has 3
Oh,
applications.
good. I'm excited. Tonight were 2 very interesting new projects that I think indicate kind of a positive trend of people
They
investing.
were
in
also
this.
really well presented.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
that was a nice treat.
Yes. Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Everyone have a nice holiday weekend.
Thank you.